what I'm trying to suggest is if that's the organizing theory of warfare that we're moving into, several things follow. And I don't know if they're the ones that got enough emphasis in any of the syllables in the commission report. Again, they were not tasked to do this, so okay. You know, I mean, I don't think it's smart to criticize people for things they weren't asked to do. On the other hand, I also don't think it's smart to ignore what we may need to do beyond what they were tasked. And that's all. So what would happen? I think if you have this as an organizing principle, new generation warfare, the investments in space and terrestrial-based information collection systems, satellites, unmanned surveillance capabilities and the like, the analysis of this information and the engagement in information campaigns to have populations distrust their rulers and not be enthusiastic about fighting in wars, and to keep them preoccupied with their domestic problems more than they would otherwise, so that they don't cause trouble beyond their borders. All of that, along with artificial intelligence supported autonomous weapon systems that come in large numbers, swarms, they could be more important, or maybe, maybe if you really want to be mealy-mouthed, as important. I'm not beneath being mealy-mouthed. As important, and maybe even more important than merely closing quantitative nuclear weapons warhead and delivery capacities or numbers per se, to promoting stability and deterrence. What am I talking about here? There was a piece. I work closely with Jim Thomas and Brian Clark, who I recommend. I think they're fun to read, and they generally are thought-provoking, and I think they're pointing in the right direction in ways that really helpful. And there was a piece that Brian Clark at the Hudson did recently where he talks about how we really need to help Taiwan out, and maybe that shouldn't be done by just having bigger aircraft carriers and ships with standoff munitions, so much as getting them to make very large numbers of standoff munitions themselves, or get them from us off the shelf that wouldn't go very far, but could cover and cause kill zones under the water, on the water, and above the water in the straits. And that the model here would be not to get the very best of these, kind of like what DARPA would produce, or the major contractors, but maybe use the Ukrainian model. I mean, here in the United States, we're beginning to say, well, we need to have a big program to make massive numbers of autonomous systems like this. I mean, these are drones mostly, underwater drones, surface drones, and airborne drones. Our aspiration is something called a replicator program, and it's aiming to make 6,000 of these things. Well, news flash, if you don't have very high standards and you're Ukrainian and you're in a basement, you're making 100,000 of these things, not 6,000, and you're aiming to make 1 million next year. Something more like that. And why would that matter? These things might be fairly incompetent, but quantity has a quality of its own. They may not go very far, but they may not need to. Anything big, a surface ship, a big airplane, maybe even some big submersibles, could be killed. And that might deter an invasion at least as much as any threat of going nuclear. And you might even allow that the Chinese want to make these things too. You might not care as much. Why? We don't really want to invade China. So, okay. Now, am I right? Who the hell knows? That's not the point. We need to start thinking about these things to see what makes the most sense.